call for the City Council meeting of May 20th, 2015 at 7:30 p.m. Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Rancunzo, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mirsky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon. Please rise for a moment of silent meditation and Pledge of Allegiance.
This evening I ask that we remember all those who are less fortunate than we are in our community locally and globally. Remember all those who've lost loved ones in our community since the last time we were in these chambers. And finally, we ask our God and Creator to give us the wisdom as a governing body and the proper information to make the right decisions for the citizens of the City of Erie.
Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of minutes from the meeting of Wednesday, May 6, 2015, and bills for payment on May 22nd and 29th, 2015. Mrs. Rancunzo, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mirsky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan.
We have a presentation today. Councilman Winarski, would you like to make the presentation, please?
Good evening, everyone. Can we get Coach Nick DeSanti up here and the Central Tech girls basketball team? Oh, right there is fine. How are you? Thank you, Coach. Hello, hello. Good to see you, girls. Hello.
I don't know where to say that.
You're perfect, right there. Come over here, Coach. Even though you're... Naturally, I'm not a pro at this, but this team here, we always hear nothing against our preps, our villas, our Merciers, but we have a team here in the City of Erie this year that took co-champs of Region 7 as well as District 10 champions. I don't know how many years it's been, Coach, but as a city council, as members of city council, we'd like to recognize them this evening for the great job they did in this championship season and just present them with an honor here and a tribute from all of us here at City Council. And Coach K, I believe it's our Coach K.
No, I'm not quite
not
there
yet, huh?
I don't think so.
Coach D, it's been, what, 24 years, you said?
Yes.
Well, good job.
Thank you.
To, please, if you would, say a couple words, and we do have certificates for all the girls.
Members of the board, and on behalf of the Central Tech staff, coaching staff, and the players, the ones who could make it this evening, I appreciate the dedication that these young ladies put in, and we appreciate what you have done for us in giving us these awards. A 20-5 season doesn't come very often, and they worked very hard, these young ladies, to achieve this. And to garner awards such as this will be remembered for a lifetime. Thank you very much.
If you would, Coach, name them all. Name the girls that are here
Well, what
tonight.
I'll do is I'll just read off all the names of all the players.
There you go.
And as I get to them, maybe they can. Our coaches included our assistant coaches, Mr. Robert Dixon, Mr. Kevin Wagner, Miss Moniqua Williams, Miss Alicia Pankos, and Mr. Brian Lewis, who is here. Our seniors were Lexi Edney, Abby Clem, who is here, Jordan Williams, Kaylee Laskowski, Janiyah Wayne, who is here.
There you go. Good job.
Jada Dixon, who is here. Courtney Barney, Devin Hansbrough, Sierra Dixon, who is here, Alexis Rivera, Kayla De Palma, who is here, Emily Shepner, and Jemiah Eddy. Those are the members of this year's team, and hopefully we can continue with this success and build upon it for next year. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, girls. If you want to say hello to the council folks. And thank you. Thank you. Congratulations.
That was you.
Yeah, I told you.
I didn't know you were there. You told me. We got to shoot some hoops.
Thank you.
No, don't do that.
Congratulations.
Right behind you. Still a pretty good shot. It's all on the wrist. It's all on the wrist.
Thank you, Mr. Winarski. And again, congratulations, girls. Job well done. Thanks for being here also. We appreciate it.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr.
Just very
Jones.
quickly, I see some parents in the audience too. My daughter's in the graduating class with some of these young ladies, and so those parents, for years, been there and dedicated and taking these young ladies wherever they needed to be until they got their own license, and then they gave them their car too. So just want to honor the parents and grandparents who are there dedicated to helping support what's happened in 25 season.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Are there any requests for repository sales out there? Are there any requests for repository sales? Are there any requests for repository sales? Seeing none, hearing none, we're going to go to Citizens to be Heard. And our first speaker that has signed up is Mr. Randy Barnes today, this evening.
Thank you, Council President, members of Council, administration, guests. My name is Randy Barnes. I live at 109 Walton Point. My subject tonight is what is $81,732 and free coffee. We've been kind of watching the real estate market the past several years, and back in February it listed that the average selling price of a house in Erie was $105,000. When I looked at what was important about that is because the city taxes, the tax bill on a $105,000 house is $1,200. So I thought, well, what do we get for $1,200? Well, what we get is we have 10 homeowners paying their taxes in a year, so we can pay a contract employee to organize records. That's Mr. Clem that retired from the clerk's office. We're paying him $12,000 a year. So it takes 10 of the average citizen's home that sold at $105,000. 10 of those homeowners bring their taxes to City Hall, and what those 10 homeowners get is they get to pay Mr. Clem $12,000 to organize records. And we did hear of a report back in October, because we're coming up on 10 months now. We've paid Mr. Clem $10,000 to assist Rose and to assist the office and to organize records. And in another 2 months it'll be to $12,000 because we've been a year. And in $12,000, again, we have to go out and ask 10 homeowners that their property tax is going to go to pay Mr. Clem to organize records. Now, reading from the official record, the 4 council people that approved that were Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Jones, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Ankunko. Approved that. 4 council people said that we have to have these records organized so badly that we have to contract out this service because no one in this building, on these 4 or 5 floors? No one in this building can organize records. We have to pay. Now the chief was on TV a week or 2 ago saying, we don't have the money in our budget to put cameras in police cars. We can't do that in the city of Erie. to protect not only the police, but to protect the citizens. It works both ways. But we have the money to pay Mr. Clem, the retired employee that's taking a $69,000 pension home every year, to organize records. We don't have money for police cars, but we've got money to pay someone to organize records. How do these organized records, how have they benefited the city? How have they benefited the taxpayers the past 10 months? How have they benefited the parents of these girls that are so good in basketball? Because their parents are paying taxes. In fact, if you take, I wish it wasn't true. I mean, it's almost kind of a joke, isn't it? It's almost kind of a joke. We had a report back in October that Mr. Clem worked from home for a few hours and worked out of the office here for a couple hours. What did we get for that? What have we gotten for $10,000? How does it reduce the cost to city government? How does it benefit the citizens that are paying their taxes every year on their homes, and they're seeing the value of their homes go down every year in the city of Erie? How does that benefit? How do these organized records? You know, I was thinking that maybe once the records are organized, we'll find that ordinance that provides free coffee for City Hall. The free coffee that the policemen ought to come down. You want coffee? Come on down. There's a great coffee maker in here. You ought to come on down. And once these records are organized, we'll probably find where that ordinance was passed. And who passed that ordinance says the taxpayers ought to pay for free coffee? Why not? They're paying somebody to organize records. Records are just in shambles all these years. Three people working in a clerk's office couldn't organize records. Couldn't organize records. Couldn't do the basic thing of filing records. I hope when these girls that are on this basketball team, I hope when they graduate from high school, they know how to organize records. They know how to file things in a filing cabinet by year. I hope they learn that in high school. Because within this building, we don't know how to do it. We had to go out and contract an employee. Because we don't need cameras in police cars. We don't need more police. We don't need more firemen. We don't need more police cars. We don't need the roads paved. We need someone to organize our records. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Are there any other citizens to be heard today?
Good evening, Council. Good evening. Well, I got some issues that give me a headache. I'm looking at this policeman that woman died a while back here. The old one. She was old, but she was still a human being. They didn't charge him with anything. He had did something before then. He was on leave. What I want to ask you is, policemen are not held for anything. A woman lost her life. What I'm looking at, it wasn't even debated. If that had been a regular citizen, they'd have been up under the jail line there somewhere. I don't understand it. He done tore up 2 city cars, and he's still on the force. Has he got something on the mayor or the district attorney or the chief or somebody that they won't let him go? He's costing us money. And you peoples are supposed to be looking oversight in this. You don't even want us to have an oversight board for the police? Every police department needs an oversight board. Internal affairs are there to soften the blow for the policemen. Internal affairs. I wouldn't want them looking into nothing for me. Honest to God, I'd take my chances when I get to see the good Lord, say, Lord, be merciful. Be merciful. Because don't nobody get no mercy but the policemen down here. No matter what they do, your policemen are out of control. And one thing about it, you can't kill me but one time. You can't kill me and bring me back. Because hey, I know you don't like what I'm saying, and I could care less. But I'm going to say it. If you had a gun to my head, I'm going to say it. Somebody need to say something, and you up there are not saying anything. That's the bad part about it. You want to be up there. What are you up there for? What are you up there for? You got these 3 things going on down here on the Bayfront, tax-free. What have you did for the citizens, the taxpayers? What have you did for them this year? I can't see nothing you've done. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Here you voted money for them wives. They're going to spend money to teach kids to swim. You did nothing for them black sinners out there. What is wrong with you people? But I tell you what, hell gonna break loose one day, and it will be your fault. Those kids need something just like the rest of them. Black kids need something just like them white kids. You're gonna wish you had did something for them too. I promise you that. You're gonna think ISIS was here. I hear people talking, I would join ISIS. I don't believe in innocent people's dying. But a lot of them gonna die. When you bring them foreigners in here, you give them everything. Big business and the non-profits, they're in bed together. When our soldiers come back, you don't do nothing for them, and they done risk their lives. They come back, arms missing, legs missing, and you don't do nothing. And then when it take them years to go to the hospital, I got a brother-in-law. He's seen arms, legs, and heads laying around, and it affects him. He stays drunk all the time. I don't know what drinking's supposed to do, but it's working hard on him to have seen this. But y'all, you didn't have to go. You didn't have to go. Somebody went, and it's all behind big business. They go over there and screw up, then we have to send our young men over there to try to clean it up. I want y'all to think about it. Think about them kids in those centers, please. Because you're opening a can of worms that you won't be able to close up. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other citizens to be heard this evening? No, there's only one name was on the list for this evening.
One name?
Yeah.
I signed the wrong list.
Oh, there's no list. We had a name that's signed up on the agenda.
My name is Michael Skripczak. I live in Erie. This concerns the Veterans Stadium at 26th and State Street in Erie, Pennsylvania. And if everyone isn't here, I'll wait until they show up. To control stair construction, building codes were initiated. Experts experimented with and came up with a design that all builders must obey. And here is what the experts decided. A step has two parts called a riser and a tread. The riser goes up and is 90 degrees to the tread. The riser must be a maximum of 7 inches. The tread must be level and at least 10 inches long. I think the president knows what I'm talking about. All stairs must be built with those dimensions, or the stair is illegal and must be changed. And no one should be allowed to use the stairs until the stairs conform to the code. Everybody paying attention? And no one should be allowed to use the stairs until the stairs conform to the code, even if the stair was built many years ago. Stairs must be built according to the building codes, because people could receive serious injury and even die from a fall. The Veterans Stadium has no legal steps. I repeat, the Veterans Stadium, I'm a veteran, has no legal steps. Not one. Not one. Pay attention. There's more. What appears to be stairs, and Brennan, you'll understand this, are aisles separating the seating areas. Aisles separating the seating areas. Someone with authority must close the stadium from further use until the steps are built according to code. Veterans and fans will be watching to see who will build the first step. I will answer any and all questions. My answers will be given with some precision. I have over 40 years of construction management experience. Thanks for listening. Any questions?
No questions. Thank you so much. We appreciate you coming in. Any other citizens to be heard this evening?
I came to the last meeting. I was requesting to purchase a piece of property for the repository sale, and it was supposed to be a decision made today. I was just wondering if that had been made, or...
I believe it's on the agenda today.
The address is 548 East 8th.
Yeah, it's number 3 on new business.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah, we'll be going to. Thank you. Are there any other citizens to be heard this evening?
My name's Dan Zimieski, resided 1017 French. Good evening, citizens, council, and administration. I came to talk about a few things tonight. Primarily the park renovation that's going on. It's a little late in the game, of course, but I think it's really unfortunate. I think it's one more example of out-of-town planners and architects who really don't understand the usage of a space, the way the people who live in the neighborhood use the space, because while there are some really nice features in the upcoming plans, I think it really favors events and appeal to outsiders and visitors instead of the hundreds of people who use the park every day. It's really removing a lot of distinct spaces that existed inside and around the gazebo. I mean, these are spaces that people, live in every day. Spend, and we're losing that. I think it's unfortunate. I don't know if there's something that can be incorporated better to divide, have the spaces. Another thing I think is unfortunate that's going on with the Bayliner trolley service. There's cuts coming up next month, I believe. It's cutting service to the people who need it, who rely on it, and yet we're expanding it with this cultural loop that runs on Saturdays, and every single time I see the cultural loop trolley go by, it's empty. It's not even getting used. But we're cutting the buses, the Bayliners that are actually occupied. Also, I see the repository sale is on the list. I was curious as to if council had looked into the status of the previous repository sale this gentleman had purchased, and if I understand he has transferred it to someone else, if blight has been reduced on that property, because I think that should be a very important consideration concerning this repository sale. And I'd also would like to lend my concern as well. I don't understand why we're giving someone $1,000 a month to organize records when that should have been done. Come on. What's going on here? It's pretty absurd. I think Randy Barnes has got a really good point. And I also support the other gentleman's concern as far as citizens review boards. This is something that is overdue in city. A lot of people don't seem to think that there's a need for this, but just because a lot of people haven't seen or felt the need themselves doesn't mean the need doesn't exist. When you know that your voice is going to not matter, you tend to not speak out. And that's why something like a citizens review board is so important, because there are people's voices who should be heard, and they're not heard today. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other citizens to be heard this evening?
I'll get on the bus, and like the bus driver will start driving while I'm standing, and every single time I say something to him, and usually he'll stop after I say something, but maybe if that could happen before I have to say something every time.
He can come up.
It's not just me, it's a lot of people. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, sir. Are there any other citizens to be heard? Are there any other citizens to be heard? Are there any other citizens to be heard? Seeing none, Rose, can we continue with the rest of the meeting here?
All right. Ordinances for final passage. Council file number 15915, official ordinance number 13/2015. An ordinance appropriating the sum of $250,000 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue to account 3929 operating transfer, BUDAG, for the Perry Square project. By Mr. Jones and seconded by Mrs. Saran-Kunso, the Council File Ordinance Bill number 15915, and now known as Official File Ordinance 13/2015, be finally passed by the City Council. Mrs. Saran-Kunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mirsky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan. City Council passed Official File Ordinance 13 of 2015, finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Council file number 15916, official ordinance number 14/2015. An ordinance appropriating the sum of $14,000 from an unappropriated and anticipated revenue and providing for the expenditure thereof, donation from Northwest PA Business Coalition. By Mr. Kwiatkowski and seconded by Mr. Jones. I'm not sure. Wait, let me check the signature.
Could be me, because usually you can't read my writing.
Okay.
It's my wonderful doctoral penmanship. It's my doctor's writing.
Seconded by Mr. Jones. That council file ordinance bill number 15916, and now known as official file ordinance 14 of 2015, be finally passed by the City Council. Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kotowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan. City Council passed official file ordinance number 14 of 2015 by yea 7, nays 0. Ordinances for first reading. Council file number 15917, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $25,000 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue to provide for the West 38th Street, Peach Street traffic signal improvements. By Mr. Mursky and seconded by Mr. Witherspoon, that council file ordinance number 15917, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kotowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 15917 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council file number 15918, an ordinance designating the center portion of McClellan Park located east of McClellan Avenue and south of East 26th Street as Larry R. Fabrizi Dog Park in honor of former District Justice Larry Fabrizi. By Mr. Brennan and seconded by Mr. Mursky, that council file ordinance number 15918, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kotowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 15918 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council file number 15919. An ordinance of the City of Erie County, Pennsylvania, authorizing and directing the execution and delivery of a guarantee agreement with the Erie Parking Authority and compliance with the provisions thereof, approving the issuance by the authority of $3,455,000 guaranteed parking revenue bond series of 2015, repealing all inconsistent ordinances, directing the proper officials of the city to take necessary actions, and further directing that this ordinance shall take effect immediately. By Mr. Kotowski and seconded by Mrs. Rankunso, the council file number 15919, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kotowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 15919 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council file 15920, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $8,626,903.93 from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue and providing for the expenditure thereof, General Obligation Bond Fund 2015. By Mr. Jones and seconded by Mr. Winarski, that council file ordinance number 15920, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kotowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 15920 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. New business.
Mr. President,
Mr. Jones.
I move the balance of the agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Winarski? Do we have any separations?
Mr. President, could you
Yes.
separate number 3,
Number 3 in
repository, under new business, please?
new business? Number 3, new business? Any other separations? Hearing none, can we vote on that, Rose?
Moving the balance of the agenda, Mrs. Rancunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan. By Mr. Jones and seconded by Mr. Kwiatkowski, resolved by the Council of the City of Erie that the proposed repository sale of properties commonly known as 548 East 8th Street, Erie, PA, and identified by Erie County Assessment Index number 14-010-016.0-139.00 by the Erie County Tax Claim Bureau to John Lilly, 360 West 10th Street, number 4, in the amount of $250 is hereby approved. Discussion?
Any discussion?
Mr. President, I wanted to just bring this up, Mr. Mulvihill. At last meeting, Ms. Beck was going to look into this this gentleman who is intending to purchase this property. Did she provide you any report of any kind?
I didn't receive any report.
Okay. Okay, we just wanted to clarify because he just left. He was just here 1 second ago. But he had purchased a property off the repository list in the past, but had turned in resold that property. This property that he intends to buy is a vacant lot, not something he could flip, but he just left before I could ask him what his intentions were. He told us last time his intentions were to make it a garden and grass and those type of things. It gives me a little confidence that he couldn't possibly build on it. It's not a buildable lot, and he couldn't really flip it for anything. But we did want to clarify that for the record. And Ms. Beck was going to look into what had happened with the other property that he purchased from Repository and make sure the blight had been remedied on that property. So I would be comfortable if you want to wait to vote on this till we know the answers to those questions.
I'd move, Mr. President, if I could, to table it. To table it until we get further information, because I don't have a problem with someone purchasing low and doing something positive with it, and it gets off the repository sale and it's no longer blight. I don't have a problem with that, but I want to know if that's the case.
Right.
And so there's a couple questions.
Well, back. We can ask.
Oh, okay.
We can ask.
We might be able to.
I'd be happy to ask him. Mr. Lilly, can you come up to the mic for a second for us? We're just looking at the item on the agenda about the purchase that you were planning to do of the 548 East 8th property. We realize that's a vacant lot, right? And your intentions were to do what with it?
Just maintain it.
Just maintain it. And in the past, you did buy a property from the repository purchase of a building, right? A house, or was it a 2-unit or?
Yeah.
And you resold that property?
Yes.
What did you do with that property prior to reselling it?
Nothing, actually. I sold it as is.
That's part of what our concern is, why we're hesitating to vote on selling you another property, because the purpose of us selling you these properties at $250 a piece is that you will remove the blight, that anything that looks like garbage, that's unsafe, that's unsanitary, will be removed by the person we sell it to. And if you hadn't done that in the last property, that makes me...
I still have it under contract. I sold it on contract. So, I mean, I can still take care of that. That's the issue.
Would you be willing to take a look at that property and come back to us and tell us that you've removed that blight before we convey you another property?
How long do I have to do that?
How long would it take you?
I'm not sure. I have to see the details first.
You can take as long as you need, but we can't keep...
My bid stay in? Until,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we just won't act on it. Council can table it until you can, we want to make sure that what we're doing is we're taking responsibility away from that person who buys it from paying those taxes on that property from the past, or from, you know, we're taking $250 for a property. So we want to make sure that in exchange for that, you fix up that property and make it no longer a blight or an eyesore to our community.
Completely outside stuff you're talking about?
Anything that would be a safety or health hazard?
Mr.
Right?
Jones?
I think on the same line of question. So I guess the larger question is whether you sold it or not, did the person who purchased it from you, have they improved it? Has it been fixed? Is it now inhabitable? Is it no longer blight? So it doesn't matter if you did it, in my opinion, or not, but the question is it being sold to you, and then you selling it, you're still, in our eyes, responsible for what the $250 price was, which was to remove blight.
That's what I'm saying.
Right, and you don't know?
I just collect the payment. I'm not the landlord. I don't deal with whatever they're doing with the property or whatever. I mean, I could go and ask them and see what I can do about it, but as far as that's concerned, I'm not like the landlord person. They just have a contract, a land contract, and I just collect a payment from them. So whatever they're doing with it, that's...
Well, I guess here's a simple question. If you're receiving money from them, do you go by there? Do you see it? Are they, I mean, if you drove by the house property...
I mean, I have been by there, but I mean,
right.
I don't go regularly check on the property, what's up to code and all that kind of stuff.
All right. I would like, Mr. President, I think actually you probably did break a little Robert's rules a few minutes ago.
We want how it is, and they're living in their house. As far as improvements go, I'd left that alone because it's not mine, legally mine.
Well, usually, if it's on a repository sale, and this may be an overgeneralization, it's usually not inhabitable.
I'm saying I don't know what they plan to do with it, is what I'm saying.
Well, what we're saying is when we sold it to you, it was the intent that one way or another it was going to be fixed up and it was no longer going to be blight. Now, if it's inhabitable and they're legally living in it, then it's probably better than it was when you got it for $250. What we're saying respectfully to you is if there's a way that you could bring us some verification that there's been improvements on the property since it was given to you for the price of $250. No one's saying you can't do this or do that. We're just saying that our intent is for those properties to be improved upon. And so if you can bring us some verification that there's been some improvement, that's what we're doing.
I didn't know their plan is what...
Sure, that's okay. You don't have to know their plan. We just need to know that it's being improved. And, Mr. President, I'd like to vote. I'd like to move to table it until we get further information.
I'm with you on the table. I just want to make a point, though, Mr. Lilly. When you come before us, and when you did before, we asked you what your intention was with the property. And we always particularly make it clear that anyone buying a property off repository sale is expected to remove the blight, meaning we're forgiving $10,000 of back taxes on this property so you can have it for dirt cheap, but you got to fix it up. That's your obligation when we do this, and we make it very clear when you come before us. So the fact that you sold it on land contract, you didn't do what we asked you to do last time. So why, shall we sell you another one? We need to... You plan to, so we need you to follow through. You were promised to us $250, fix this place up and make it look nice. That's your side of the deal.
Yeah, I believe that I said that I was trying to buy it as part of, restoring the community. I don't know if I said
But if you haven't done that, I hate to say we're going to sell you another one until we're sure you're going to follow through on what you said.
Yeah, I'll check it out and see what the details of everything. I was just asking what exactly needs done, just outside stuff or inside stuff.
It would be up to you to know that based on looking at it and seeing the safety and making sure there's not trash, making sure the building's not falling down, making sure it's not a sanitary issue for the neighborhood, because that's what a blight is. Something that's unsafe and unsanitary for the neighborhood would be a blight.
I can suggest that to them, see how much they would
okay.
Try to work with them.
Mr. Lee, what is the address of the other property that is in question?
548 East 8th.
548 East 8th?
No, that's
not this one, the previous one.
The previous one.
527 East 13th.
527 East 13?
That's it.
Is there any other discussion? I believe there's a motion on the table. Mr. Jones?
I'll second
Second
the
motion.
table. And we'll expect you to come back to us when you have a report on the status of that other property, and we'll address this issue at that time. So it's not forgotten, but we have an expectation. We're doing something for you. We're giving you these properties for cheap. We expect you to make them nice. Okay?
You want me to come back after it's fixed or just the status?
I think after it's fixed, and bring us pictures. Okay?
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Lilly.
Mr. Lilly.
Ms. Roby, do you want to vote on the motion?
Okay, then we have a motion to table this resolution. Mrs. Rancunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan. That'll take us to new business, our committee reports, Mr. President.
Mr. Witherspoon.
Thank you, Mr. President. The only thing I have is based on the presentation the gentleman made regarding the Veteran Stadium. I understand the step situation. As a football official, it's tough getting up and down those steps. And I always felt it was strange, especially as I grew older. We had to expand the halftime for me to get up and down. So what I'm going to do is take this information and give it to Gus Picardo, because that's where it should go. That's the Stadium Commission, for them to look at that. It may have been grandfathered in, and I think it has been, but I'll give it to Gus and come back with a report.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Mr. Witherspoon. Mr. Mursky, your report?
Just a few things to report. I attended the rally against animal cruelty in Perry Square. It was a well-attended event. Everybody that was there, it was a peaceful demonstration followed by a rally on State Street there. Attended the Zoo Parade. Zoo Parade was always a good time. We had a lot of people out there, a lot of children, a lot of families celebrating our Erie Zoo. And we're one of the few municipalities in Pennsylvania that has a zoo. So we're very fortunate to have such a fine zoo as we do. And I attended the AFL-CIO Community Services Dinner, where they recognize the GE Community Services Fund for their work in the community. They give hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in donated services to the community, giving back for all that they've been given. And so we recognize them and honor them. Just a couple things also to report. From the Streets Department, paving continues. If you see the patching's already been started and some paving work has been done. And also just wanted to wish everyone a happy Memorial Day. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mursky. Mrs. Quinzel?
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a Water Reserve Investment Committee meeting tomorrow with our investment advisor, and so we'll be getting the report of how our fund is doing. This is a fund that's used, a portion of it every year for capital improvements for the city, so we look forward to that discussion and also a review at that time of our investment policy statement to ensure that our goals within our statement are still relevant today and make any necessary modifications going forward. I did want to talk to Mr. Mulvihill for a second, if he could give us an update on the status of the summer recreation program guide and when we might see that either in our school book bags or in our newspapers.
I have a draft copy right here, and it's being finalized. We hope to get it in the schools. Actually, by Friday, they should be going into the schools. We want to get in before Memorial Day. I think we'll make that. And then in the papers, it'll go in June 5th and June 6th. I think it'll be an insert in the papers. So 40,000 copies are being printed, and every student through in the school district through middle school should have a copy. Whether it gets out of their backpack when they get home, it's
Now they'll know to look for it, so that's...
right. Everyone will know to look for it, but it's some big improvements on the programs, and we're looking forward to a full summer here.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mulvihill, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Kunso. Mr. Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just take a moment to congratulate all those who were involved in the electoral process yesterday. I was glad I didn't have to run for another campaign, but I've done a few of those already. But for those, not just the candidates who were successful and won a seat or regained or maintained their seat, but for those who got out and voted and exercised that privilege and that right to be able to have their voice heard through the electoral process. So, again, congratulations to all those who participated in whatever way, shape, or form. Echo Mr. Mirsky's comment on Happy Memorial Day and blessings to the community as we enjoy a holiday weekend. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Winarski.
Thank you, Mr. President. No committee reports this evening. Just one note. A good friend of mine asked me that I'd mention the Mercyhurst University baseball team. Division II are going for the first time in the college or university's career College World Series. So he asked that I'd mention that tonight, and you guys wish them luck. They're coached by Joe Spano, and they have a pretty good program going on there. So, like I said, I'd put it out there, and who knows, it might be on ESPN or ESPN2, but best of luck to them. Other than that, have a great holiday weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winarski. Mr. Kwiatkowski.
I attended the police and the fire department pension meetings this past week, and both are progressing well, and the funds are increasing in value. And tomorrow I attend the aggregate board meeting of all the pension funds, and I'll have a report next meeting on the progress. But I'm sure the controller will have some positive words during her report. And we also attended a zoo meeting, and it was interesting that this year the membership is up almost to 6,900 members. Last year was 6,700 members. Revenues increased from $438,000 to roughly $478,000. They have a new concession area which is doing well, and they're pleased with it. Coke was renewed as a beverage supplier for another 5 years. They were hit with a new background policy where all their volunteer and workers above the age of 14 have to get the clearances now from the state police, the FBI, and child abuse reports. It's a product of our time, and the zoo brought it up that that's a new impediment to a lot of businesses. If you deal with kids, you're probably going to have this done. The zoo is now on Facebook, on FacePage, They have 9,470 likes, 300 followers, and they're working on putting it on Twitter. They're pleased with the results of those efforts. Galapalooza is coming June 20th from 7 to 11 o'clock. Their educational programs are expanding, and they're well pleased. The ice arena is reopened as of May 4th, and I will have a report to council about what their plans are. I know they've had to do some repairs there, but they did pick up some business from the Oshawa Generals and some other teams since the ice arena up on East 38th closed down. And they had some breeding procedures with the leopards, which didn't work out, but they're going to try it again. And some of the other animals were successful, and those animals have now been exchanged with other zoos. And finally, on a final note, Saturday I had the pleasure of putting up over 1,200 flags at Trinity Cemetery. And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you all to remember what Monday is all about. Monday is not a day for Smith's hot dogs and your favorite beverage. It's not about traveling out of town. It's about what's under those 1,200 flags. Unfortunately, I lost two of my best friends in high school, and that's what Memorial Day is all about. So in honor of those veterans, men, women, some of our finest, please take time Monday to pause and say a little prayer and thank them for giving us the privilege to do what we do on Monday. And with that, I salute my fellow veterans and say thank you for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Kwiatkowski. Ms. Stankiewicz, any report today?
I do. The investment committee had the meeting today, and they discussed the possibility of hiring 2 new managers, one for emerging markets and one for international markets, and we're going to take that information to the aggregate board tomorrow for their meeting. And our funds did very well for the first quarter. Actually, we were ranked in the 3rd percentile of all public funds, so that's pretty good. And we're watching those funds closely, so that's a good sign there. The market value of the pensions as of April 30th were $233 million, so that's a bit of an increase there since the last quarter. And if anybody wants to see the reports that were going to be presented to tomorrow's meeting, I have them here and they'll be in my office if you're looking for more detail on each of the pension funds. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Stankiewicz. Appreciate it. Does the administration have a report today, Mr.
Yeah, I just
Volman?
wanted to also add that the mayor will be having a press conference to highlight the summer rec program as he does each year. So that'll be announced very soon. And the Perry Square project, you notice, is the West Perry Square is fenced in now. They're starting to work tomorrow, and that'll be underway. I think it's going through to early August. So it should be completed, anticipated to be completed by then. And paving projects, one project will be starting very soon, and the other one is out for bid right now. So there's 2 large projects underway.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mulville. I had a couple items to report here, a couple of meetings I attended. The City of Erie Comprehensive Plan, I'm on the advisory committee. We had a meeting last week, actually a week and a half ago. And also we had a, City Council had a study session with the comprehensive plan the day after. I think it was a very good session. I think a lot of council members were I think they were pleased with a lot of the discussion that went on and a lot of the forward thinking that a lot of the planners do. And I think it's we picked a very good consultant for that plan, so we're really looking forward to that. But just to kind of remind everybody, I think I mentioned it a couple meetings ago, but the comp plan is a process for determining the community goals and aspirations in terms of community development. So there's going to be a lot of continued discussion, and I'll continue to try to report what a lot of the discussion is as we go forward. That report will be completed before the end of this year. Also, I attended a session with the City of Erie staff at McCollum Park. We received a grant for dog park equipment for the new dog park that's being, it's not open yet, but it's the work's underway. There's been road work done. The road's not complete. The fencing was put in, concrete pads. The city staff and a lot of volunteers did some really incredible work there. Very, very well, good job, and it'll be announced soon by the administration when the park will be opening, probably sometime in June, maybe end of June. I'm not sure if that. Dave, is there any report on that?
I don't have a specific date,
okay.
But you're correct.
It's still being planned. And still some work being done there. I also attended the Erie Downtown Partnership had their annual spring meeting. Updates were giving on their current programs, initiatives, new businesses that have come into the city, the facade improvement program, and many of the events they reported on. They also talked about their upcoming initiative to add cameras for security throughout the downtown area. There's a lot of great work being done, and we're looking forward to continue to see more done, especially in our downtown areas is where they concentrate all their work. Also, upcoming events, there's a forum coming up. It's called the Urban Entrepreneurs Forum. It's on May 27th. It's from 5 to 7 in City Council chambers. It's open to the public. The forum is going to cover finance, support, networking opportunities for small business entrepreneurs. It's sponsored by Bridgeway Capital, the City of Erie, Gannett Small Business Center, and it's part of the ECRA's Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority's Ignite Erie initiative. So they're doing some great work, especially with this new initiative that's going on. But the goal is to boost the inner city economy. So we're really excited to see that continue to go forward. And with that, Rose, that would conclude the meeting today.
Okay. City Council adjourns at 8:37. Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Rancunzo, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon.